So today we're going to take a look at one secretly good agent on each map, and to determine what a secretly good agent is, we're going to take a look at some of the stats that I collated and come up with some agents that had a pretty high win rate but maybe not too high of a pick rate. And so you need to have at least less than 50% pick rate on a map for me to consider you to be somewhat secret, but also have a pretty decent win rate, or at least I can envisage you having a pretty good win rate. So let's dive in, and the way we're going to do this is we're going to show some clips if some are available and kind of go through some of the basics of what an agent might be able to do on each map. And let's start with Ascent, and my pick for Ascent here is actually Breach. Now Breach had a 4% pick rate in the games that I analyzed on Ascent, and it was actually only one team that picked him, and that was Bleed from APAC. The thing is though, Bleed won all of their games on Ascent, and they didn't just beat some teams that no one's ever heard of and that they're just way better than. They beat Xerxia on this map as well, and we will be taking a look at that game in particular. But the thing is, Xerxia, as you might know, beat Optic on Ascent. The eventual winners of the entire tournament, Xerxia beat on Ascent. So it's not like Xerxia are some, noob team that don't know what they're doing. They are a very good team. But yet, Bleed were able to beat them on Ascent with Breach. So let's find out how they did it. And the clip I'm going to show you here is from round 10. And what's happened so far is that Bleed went for this very aggressive B push here with the Sova and the Omen. The Jett dashed in. The Breach was flashing from deep, into these kind of corridors. But it ended up in a 1-for-1 trade. And so we're in a 4v4. And what Xerxia are doing is they are very quickly rotating back towards this A site, and they're going to try and execute onto this A site. But as you can see, our Breach is already in position, and they have a Killjoy set up there as well, which they are ready to use. So I'm going to run this a bit fast for you so we aren't here forever. But as you can see, we get the drone, we get the Jett dash, we get the alarm bot going off from the Killjoy, and the nano swarms then come in. And that is the cue for the Breach to send in the ult. And obviously this Jett is absolutely screwed, as you might expect, and that is exactly what happened. But then we also get this Breach stun towards the A main position as well. And here's the thing, Xerxia began to walk in onto the site, but the thing is the Breach bought them so much time that those smokes actually elapse, and that allows Bleed to then know where these players are. They send in the Sovereign. It's really quite nice. They run in onto the site, and Cruz here, poor Cruz, ends up in a 1v4. He is able to actually kill the Breach, but then he obviously isn't going to be able to win this and gets caught out by the Sova in mid as he rotates. So that's the end of the round, and I think we saw there just a one example of how Breach might be used on this map. And the thing is, when you take a look at Breach and start putting some of these abilities down here, you start to see that, yeah, this could be really powerful, right? Like, we obviously saw this kind of stun towards A main that was very powerful indeed, and there's no way that you can avoid that if you're coming through. The same could be true of B main as well, right? And there's just plenty of good stuns. Let's say you're into this corner here, tucked up towards mid. You can do something like this. You hear the tap of the orb here for the ult orb. You stun them, you aftershock them maybe as well through this wall, right? Like, there's a lot of good potential here. Your team pinches in from the other side. There is a lot that you can potentially do with Breach on this map. I mean, even coming from this short position, let's say they're going for a B rush, you can still, Breach's utility reaches long enough to have an impact on this map from a lot of different positions, and that is what I think is important. If you're attacking towards this A site, you can send in a stun like this, you can send in then a flash on this wall, then you can come in and aftershock either behind this box or Dice or Jen or whatever, right? There's just a lot of potential here for Breach. Take a look at this ult on A site from Breach. Take a look at this Rolling Thunder. That's the whole site. Let's say they got a smoke up here so they can't see you. You just ult everything on site. The site is yours, 100% guaranteed. I think that there is real potential here that Bleed showed us. Okay, moving on to Bind, and for Bind, my pick is Chamber. Chamber actually has the highest pick rate of any agent I'll talk about today, which was 41% on Bind, but his non-mirror win rate was 81%, which means if you pick Chamber and the other team doesn't, 81% of the time you're going to win the game, which is a pretty absurdly high number. A lot of that is Optic as well, obviously the team that won Masters Reykjavik, and I think that a lot of people will call Bind their strongest map, and I think one of the reasons is that they found out that Chamber is really, really strong on this map, and so let's take a clip to see why that might be. And for that, we'll take a look at the grand final, and we can see we've got our Chamber here. Yay is pushed up, and this is just obviously the first thing about Chamber is you can get pushed up into these kind of aggressive angles and get out for free, that we all know is very strong. He actually gets droned in this instance and has to push away, but he does destroy the drone basically for free. But that is not the important point that I want to point out, because actually the crucial thing is this trap. Okay, because whilst the Raze is able to get through, and even actually the Sky in this instance, the problem that they have here is that the Astra and the Viper are going to get stuck. They can't help their team, right? The Sky is coming in, the Raze is coming in, but these two don't have anywhere to go. Okay, and that's going to cost them, because as we run this forward, and you can see they're kind of just stuck in this position, what ends up happening is Ye is going to kill both of them, because there was nowhere, they couldn't drop down and try and, you know, get further into the site, because they would have just been slowed. And that is why Chamber is so good on this map, because when we take a look at the map of Bind, the thing is, all these choke points are really, really small, right? If you want to consider that a choke point, or even the window, which obviously you have to drop down in, you know, this is obviously pretty small as well. All these choke points are pretty small by other maps, you know, kind of considerations, or it's the window, which isn't great either. And so what happens with these trademarks is you just get slowed and you get stuck in a horrible position, right? Particularly if you end up like those Loud players there, where some of your team is already through and you want to try and support them, but you just can't, because you're just stuck in the mud, and it's so hard. And you can think about these slow effects, you know, combining them with like Raze nades or whatnot, completely deadly, right? Just completely, absolutely deadly. You know, Viper is another common pick on this. You know, you put vulnerable on them, you Raze nade them, it wouldn't go great, right? And so these trademarks, I think, are just super, super effective on this map, because slow effects on this map are really good, because it's such a tight-knit map, right? So if that trademark goes off, one, you know where they are, and two, you know that they can't get out of a really small area. So any effect like a Raze nade is gonna be deadly. Moving on to Breeze, and okay, this one might be a bit of hopium, maybe copium on my part. Breeze is a pretty standard, boring map when it comes to the meta overall, but with the Jett nerf, I've been thinking, could it be possible that teams go away from Jett? Now that Jett maybe isn't hopefully as overpowered as she was in the past, will teams start to move away from Jett? Of course, you're probably going to pick Chamber again on this map, and so that is kind of your defensive op character. If you want one, that's fine, that's sorted, right? So can we replace Jett with something else? And maybe this is a bit of hopium, but what about Yoru? And I'm being serious here, to be honest. We saw that with Forsaken on Bind that Yoru is not, you know, some sort of complete troll pick and can cause a lot of chaos, and I think is worth picking on certain maps. And I think that Breeze is a map that he is pretty well suited for, because there will be points of the map or situations where you can gate crash into a position and they won't be able to hear you. I'm thinking of things like this, where you put the Viper Orb up here in the tunnel, and you know, that's a very common thing to do, and often attackers will be able to get into this space for free a lot of the time. And the thing is, you can then probably send this gate crash and it can probably end up back here towards the spawn. And the thing is, unless you are super unlucky with timing or something, a lot of the time people aren't going to hear this, okay? They just ain't going to be able to hear this, and then you're just in their spawn, okay? You could probably only do it like once a game, but as soon as you do it once, it's a massive threat. Okay, all of a sudden that's something that has to be worked out pretty quick by the defenders of how they actually want to, you know, manage to know if someone is in their spawn or not straight away. And I think just in general, you know, just even normal teleports over towards this side as well, you know, with the normal Viper wall up that you might put up towards this, something like that, right? Just normal ones like that as well, or even, you know, faking it around this area, that any defender that's in kind of this area hears it and is worried like, oh, there's someone right here. You know, you could do that, for instance, when you're actually going B, right? You could put down this teleporter or somewhere in this kind of area. Maybe you put it pushed up against the pyramid here, but really your team is going B, right? You put up this Viper wall. A lot of people will respect this Viper wall. You do this TP, you make the sound, but actually your team is going towards B. It's those kind of things that I think have real potential on this map, and I think that Yoru could be pretty good. Obviously his flash, he can send very, very far as well, so that's no problem. You know, and I think that that would be a big help in general. So he has the range as well to work on this map. I think that Yoru could be pretty good. And so now let's come to Fracture, and my pick for Fracture is KO, who had an 18% pick rate overall, but had a 71% non-mirror win rate. So again, doing very, very well. And let's take a look at a clip again from Optic to see how they use KO on this map. Now this one is against Loud, but in the upper final, not the actual grand final this time. But as you can see, we got the side of Optic. They're going for this A hit, but actually they had just sort of faked that they were going B and are coming back to A. You can see the rotations are starting to come in for Loud as well. But the KO is going to allow them to attack this site very quickly, because what's going to happen is we're going to get this knife, and as you can see, that knife covers all of this right hand side of sight, but it doesn't spot anyone, of course, because no one's there. And so that is really, really important, because what it means is after this spots no one, all of these Optic players can just look left. They all just start looking left, right? They don't have to worry about anything on sight. And that is super impactful. So they send this flash round. Okay, they don't see anyone. They send in the KO molly to push them out. Sadak actually goes down to like 1 HP, 2 HP, sorry. And then manage to take the site and get the spike down. You obviously have the KO ult going off as well. So that's stopping anyone from using any utility to stop the plant, which is something we see all the time with like breaches and with raises. That happens all the time. And so Loud are down 4-0 here, but they just have to save because they know that there's no way that they are going to get back in onto this site. And that's the thing with KO on this map. He's just super strong. Particularly his 0 point just has so many good little positions for clearing things out. You know, on this A site here, we saw it used towards Dish as well. Look at all this that'll clear for you. You know, towards this B site, and like this will clear all of tower and a lot of the B site as well. And obviously being suppressed is a pretty big deal, particularly at the higher levels of the game. So I think that KO is a really good pick on this map. And because a lot of teams don't run too many like heavy information comps, KO is a great way of gaining information on this map that I think actually a lot of teams are missing because they don't know, you know, where the opponent is actually going or what they're doing. And now let's come to Haven, and this is one that I'm almost not quite sure of myself, but we'll see if it works for you, right? Because here's the thing, on Haven there's a bunch of different comps that no one can agree what's actually best on this map anyway, tons of different things being played, but there was one agent in my data that had a 7% play rate, very low, right? But had an 83% non-mirror win rate, and that was Sage. And Sage is a weird pick to me on this map. But a bunch of different teams, actually, this wasn't one team running Sage a lot, this was a bunch of different teams running Sage a couple times, which I found quite interesting. But one of those teams was Paper Rex, and so let's take a look at them against Xerxia on Haven. And so for that, we have to come into round number 15, and Paper Rex are on the attack here against Xerxia. Again, another very good team, but what they've managed to do is they've managed to kind of outmaneuver Xerxia in this instance. They've kind of faked some C pressure. They got into Garage. They kind of faked a bit of presence towards C long as well. But you can see that the Sage is actually pushed up here on A and ready to go A, as is the Spike. And that is what they are going to do. They're going to come back towards this A site. And this, I think, is why teams ran Sage and found success with it, because there is quite a few times when on this map you can outmaneuver the other team and find yourself coming up against either a free site or where someone is playing very passively. And you can see Foxy here, he's ready to kind of re-aggress towards the site, but gets stopped by the Sage slow. And then what's going to happen is Jing, who's playing the Sage here, he's going to eventually Sage wall. And this is where I think, particularly on this A site, you have a big problem, because what's going to happen is Jing puts up the Sage wall, and now Xerxia are in a spot where they know they have to really commit to dropping from heaven, which is really not a good position to be in when you have to drop at 3 people, because there just isn't enough time here for them to actually fully break the wall and try and just get through one little crack in the wall. That would be pretty suicidal by itself. So what they feel they have to do is actually just drop from heaven with 3 players. And so that is what they do. And initially it goes okay for them. They get the first kill. But then as we run this forward, they just get mopped up, because dropping from heaven is not really that great. You know, there's a lot of different angles to check. And so that is why I think teams found success with Sage on this map. Obviously, defensively, Sage is going to give you some value, right? I'm sure that most of you can understand that Sage has value on the defensive side. You wall up something, you know, particularly on B, for instance. You know, a lot of teams like to kind of fast execute towards this B site, particularly on save rounds. Well, Sage can just stop that, right? Like you put up this wall against a save, and you know, it's pretty much round 1 a lot of the time. So, you know, Sage has value on the defensive side. I'm sure we all understood that. But this is the thing, particularly on this map, you can find yourselves in a lot of 5v5 retakes, because, you know, you can outmaneuver the other team potentially, and you will get into those scenarios quite often. And as I just said, particularly on this A site, if you put up a wall over here, or, you know, anywhere in towards this little bit of the map, that causes a massive problem all of a sudden, because, you know, they could be pushed up on the wall here, you know, they could be slightly behind the wall. Like, if you're trying to retake through this, it's very difficult. And so you might end up in like a position where Xerxia were there, where they felt the need to have just 3 people drop from heaven, which, as I said, is a very difficult thing to do, because they could be under hell, you know, they could be anywhere over here, they could be over here. You know, there's a lot of different angles you all of a sudden have to check when you're dropping midair, and that's not going to really happen. So you're just going to get slaughtered like we saw them do there. Moving on to Icebox, and on Icebox, my pick is Killjoy. Killjoy is a fairly popular agent on this map with a 31% pick rate, but again, she has a 67% 67% non-mirror win rate. She is doing very, very well on this map, and so let's take a look at the masters of this G2 to understand why. Because here they are against Team Liquid here on the attacking side. They're actually on a save this round. But as you can see, they've managed to sort of walk their way up onto this A site. You can actually see they have a turret watching the flank as well. In this round, because they're on a save, they actually don't have chamber traps. But playing their comp, normally they have chamber traps plus a turret watching the flank. So there's no way you can ever flank them, right? Which is just part of the benefit of playing Killjoy on this map as well. But what we're about to get is this Viper ult on towards this A site. Kind of a weird Viper ult, right? You know, leaves you a bit exposed here. And they just have Nukkye here watching that. So they start to get the plant down eventually. Hoodie is going to plant the spike. But they just have Nukkye kind of watching that other side of the Viper's pit where, you know, someone could sneak in. The thing is, Nukkye's about to die to Scream right there. So now all of a sudden they're in a problem. Now they do manage to trade that kill, but as I said, they're in a save. But what they do here is really quite cool, because they're going to put a chamber trap here in the Viper's pit, and then they're also going to put an alarm bot here as well, towards that side of the map as well, just to make sure. So there you go, it just went there, the alarm bot here as well. So now there is no way that you can ever come around here and surprise this Viper. So what they've got here is a really cool setup where you have the Sage kind of taking any contact within the Viper's pit to start off with. If anyone tries to come to the Viper over here, they're gonna know about it pretty quickly. And then, you know, we've also got like nano swarms in there as well towards the spike, which with the Viper's pit, you know, good luck defusing the spike. And so what that means is, even though they're on a save, this round is unwinnable for Team Liquid. There's no way they can win this round. You know, with the spike down, with all this utility that's around them, there's literally no way. The time starts to elapse. You see, we're already getting down on the time, but it's already gone. Like the round's gone, right? And so they have to save straight away, and they end up in this horrific situation where they barely even tried a retake when the other team didn't even have guns. And so yeah, Killjoy just has a lot of potential on this map. Obviously for watching flanks, very, very good, but in general, taking sites on Icebox isn't the hardest thing in the world. You know, getting the spike down isn't that hard generally on Icebox. And that, I think, is what teams are leaning into, is the fact that as soon as you get the spike down, you become the defenders. And when you are the defenders, Killjoy is really good. And that's basically how these teams play. And obviously the lockdown as well has some very good uses. This is a very common one on A for getting out there. You know, if you learn some nanoswarm lineups for this corner, you know, and potentially this corner as well, you know, you'll find a lot of free kills from that. And generally that is the way that these teams use Killjoy on this map. She's obviously very good for the defensive side in general, but she's also good if you can just get the spike down, which a lot of the time, as long as you have a Sage, you will be able to. And then finally, let's come to Split. And the pick for Split that I have is my boy Cypher, because Cypher has, again, a 31% pick rate on this map, but a 67% non-mirror win rate as well. Cypher is doing very well on this map, much better than Chamber or Killjoy are. So let's take a look at a clip from Paper Rex and how they use Cypher. And we'll come to this round, round number 18. And this is one of the best bits of Cypher play I think I've ever seen. But actually here, Benkai, who's playing Cypher, has this weird A setup with his tripwires in these very defensive positions. I love Paper Rex. I think they're a really cool team, and the way that they play is clearly very well thought out. And so obviously Paper Rex love to get aggressive, right? And so what you'll often see is they'll get aggressive to, like, let's say B and mid here. They want to get aggressive here. And that means that this A side obviously is under a lot of threat. And what they'll often have is these kind of tripwires set up deep into the site. Benkai will just literally sit here, you know, get smoked off. Someone will run into that tripwire and he'll get a kill. It happened to the Guard multiple times when they played on this map. Happened to G2 a couple times as well. But I have to show this clip because it's super, super good. Because what's happened is Benkai has actually retrieved his camera and he's going back towards this B site. As you can see, we've got G2 in heaven here ready to push as well. But what's going to happen is as they begin to push, he's going to put this camera down. Okay, and this camera in a weird position. You know, teams aren't used to it. So we actually get a trade here in heaven and it's a 3v3. And this round, you know, could be in trouble. Thing is, Nukkye gets pinged by the camera. So Mindfreak is able to find that kill. But you can see that Nukkye is being pinged there. He's being pinged. But then also, Mixwell also gets caught by the camera. And so Mindfreak, it looks really cool, him doing all this. But both of them got pinged by the Cypher cam. I just had to show this clip because I really loved it in the time, and I don't think that a lot of people realized that this was like Benkai won them this round on Cypher. But just in general, the way he plays Cypher on this map is a is really, really good. And so, as I'm sure any of you who watch this channel quite regularly know, that I speak about Cypher on this map quite often, because I hate when teams don't pick Cypher or Viper on this map, because it basically cuts off a lot of your attacking side. Obviously, we just saw kind of the defensive advantage of Cypher, but I think actually for the attacking side is where Cypher is maybe even more valuable. Because the thing is, on this A side, this is a really important part of the map. Okay, if you can't get past this part of the map, you just can't go to the A site unless you go like 5 through vents, which you're not going to do. So you have to be able to take control of this part of the map, and Viper can do it pretty well, but so can Cypher with these cages. And the thing is, you can make this, you know, you can make this 5 people using these cages, or it could be 0, right? You could just use them as a fake if you wanted to as well. The thing is, they are really super impactful, because what do you do if, you know, you've got like an operator player, like a chamber here, back here, staring down with an op across here, and you've also got, you know, let's say a raise back here, you know, playing up here as well. You just can't go A in that instance if you don't have an easy way of blocking off both lines of sight. You know, as soon as you get control of this little area, then you have options to you. Then, you know, you can flash through here and you can maybe go and attack the A site itself, or you can then, you know, start maybe a quick lurk up towards the ramp and in towards heaven, right? Both of those are possible if you get that early control. But if you don't get that early control, then you just cut yourself up from a big part of the map, and guess what, your attack side isn't going to go well when that is the case. And so that was just one secretly maybe pretty good agent on each map. I'd be interested in hearing your comments down below, you know, to see what agents you think will be good on certain maps, and teams should pick more on certain maps. I'd be very interested in hearing, so let me know in the comments down below. And with that, have a really nice day.